Hello, and welcome to this session brought to you by v.i.b.e Coaching. My name is George Stanianu. I'm a behavioural coach and the founder of v.i.b.e. And today is my absolute privilege to be your host as we discover how to connect with your children in minutes and avoid years of pain.
So let's set the scene and begin with the challenge. As you've seen, the statistics paint a disturbing picture. My concern is that those figures were published 6 years ago, so there's very little doubt in my mind that things have improved. Self-esteem, or the lack of it, is a major factor in the ever-growing mental health challenges being experienced globally by young people. However, what concerns me as a coach and as a parent is that what young people experience today may well manifest into lifelong mental health challenges. And of course, part of that lifelong journey may involve becoming a parent, and there's no doubt that parenting is one of life's biggest challenges. The trouble, of course, is that none of us graduated with a master's degree in parenting prior to becoming a parent. Mind you, I guess most of us probably feel that we deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for parenting if there were such a thing. In reality, though, we tend to reference what we experienced growing up. And there we round the parenting circle. We all draw from our own childhood and the relationships that undoubtedly influenced us, positively or otherwise, to shape our own approach to parenting. So, together our why today is to draw from a different reference point, to explore the science of behavior and the pivotal role it plays in helping to build harmonious relationships through mutual acceptance, appreciation, and understanding. Over the next 70 minutes or so, we're going to explore 5 key areas that will influence the relationship with your children and indeed any relationship that's important to you. First off, behavioral DNA. This is a fundamental part of what makes you you. But unlike your genetic DNA, you have the ability to adapt what are essentially your natural comfort zones of behavior. You're also going to become behavioral detectives, to quickly learn through simple observation the behaviors that motivate others and inspire self-esteem, and what demotivates and manifests imposter syndrome, the sense of not being worthy or good enough, something I've experienced for a great deal of my life. When presenting this course, the light bulbs tend to switch on for parents when they establish 2 things. Firstly, when they appreciate what their child mentally sees when they look in the mirror, and secondly, and in many respects more importantly, how the young person perceives you as their parent. Lastly, I'll run through a number of ways you can take big steps by making small adjustments to how you choose to communicate with your family. By the end of this course, you will be in a position to further enhance the self-esteem of those closest to you. And in so doing, you'll be strengthening their psychological armor, invaluable as they face the inevitable challenges ahead. Let's face it, the closest relationships are often the most challenging. Learning more about the science of behavior and developing your versatile intelligence and behavioral empathy, your v.i.b.e, you'll undoubtedly be equipped to enhance your relationship both at home and in general. The tools we're about to walk through are, in my humble opinion, what everyone should have in their life skills locker. And you know, I believe the earlier they're learned, the better. Good judgment is the result of experience. Experience is often the result of bad judgment. That is definitely a metaphor for my life. Since I took my first breath way back in 1969, every moment has been an education in both nature and nurture, both of which I will touch on a little later. My working life has also taken many twists and turns, and not entirely in the manner that most would regard as successful. From being the general manager of a health club at 21 to being made redundant 3 times in 3 years in my 30s to launching and developing a number of service and sales orientated businesses over the next 20 years, culminating in a CEO role within an ambitious company, it certainly hasn't been dull. But do you know, it was this last job that was the catalyst for me to realize that my true passion is to contribute to the well-being of others. And here I am. And hopefully you'll feel by the end of our time together today that I may have helped you in some way. I've always been fascinated by people. The question I still find myself asking is, why do people do what they do? But it was only when I became a parent that I really began to appreciate the science of behavior, or behavioral wiring, as some people call it. Here I am with my children, Michael, Alex and Natasha, together with my mother-in-law Janet, who we all share a house. Taking this shot is my wife Joanna, who was quite clear about the pain she'd inflict upon me, even if I began to think about including a photo of her on any of this presentation. As parents, Joe and I are keenly aware of each family member's personality differences, something that I'm going to share more about with you later. The point here is that our awareness dictates how we communicate, and as a result, dictates the bond we have with each of them. As I said earlier, learning about behavior has taught me so many valuable lessons, not least when, as part of a study, I asked the family to independently articulate how they saw me in terms of my nature. To my surprise, their view was very different to my own self-image. This was a real point of learning and, frankly, a massive wake-up call that has made me completely rethink the way in which I communicate. This revelation perfectly demonstrates how misaligned perception and/or expectation can manifest and do its work to damage a relationship. But more on all of this later. As you can probably tell, I'm very much invested in the benefits of versatile intelligence and behavioral empathy, the two cornerstones of everything we'll cover today. However, I wasn't always as convinced as I am now. So, what helped me to buy in, so to speak? The first convincer was when the approach answered the question, how is it possible for three children to be brought up in the same household and be so different? I also began to realize how far back the study of human behavior dates, starting with the initial views held by Empedocles in 444 BC. He believed that personality was impacted by external elements such as fire, earth, air, and water. He was followed by Hippocrates in 400 BC, who in turn was followed by Galen and Heraclitus, who all modified the concept in favor of personality being impacted by internal fluids, choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholy. But it wasn't until we fast forward to the 1920s and the work of Carl Jung, who believed that personality was tied to thought processes, thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition. That's the point where it all began to make more sense to me. Jung and the work of countless others sparked the interest in personality profiling, a tool that's still very well used today, particularly within the workplace. In fact, according to Forbes, 60 to 70% of employers use pre-employment personality testing to vet job applicants to recruit, in inverted commas, the right fit. There are many excellent profiling options out there, all of which use pretty much the same philosophy. As you'll discover, we all have a unique blend of gifts that can be tapped into dependent on the versatility and empathy of the individual. This is something I've been able to measure following a year-long study where individuals, having learned more about what we're talking about today, changed their mindset and as a result adopted new, more effective patterns of behavior. The results, I'm proud to say, were significant, especially in terms of how participants naturally engaged, effectively communicated, and positively influenced those around them. My study has certainly reinforced thoughts articulated by the excellent Deepak Chopra, who says, our behavior is merely a printout of our consistent thoughts. I touched upon it earlier, but let's briefly return to what I believe defines us, our nature and nurture. I see nature as being most significantly influenced by two factors. Firstly, as we've been discussing, your behavioral DNA, the unique combination of gifts that you feel most comfortable demonstrating. However, it's the second factor that's literally key to our survival. We all know that our brains are the most complex of computing systems out there, but we're also hardwired very simply, in that we're pre-programmed to do absolutely anything to either avoid hurt or to seek happiness. Now, the need to avoid hurt or loss or pain or whatever you want to call it is the stronger motivator of the two. Many of us, and I include myself here, have in the past or are currently living a life constantly trying to avoid hurt. This drives what we call inflated behavior, which by no means is reflective of that person's true balanced best self. Now, inflated behavior is something I'd like us to spend some time addressing today. Now to nurture, and firstly what's called historical social conditioning. This is everything and everyone that shapes us from the moment we take our first breath, and it's one of the reasons why parenting is such a huge responsibility. From our first moments, we are influenced by role models, and the first role models most of us have are our parents. For a young person, the reliance on both role models and their own experiences as they grow are what shapes their core values. The point is this: whatever young people believe is true becomes true. Whatever they believe is real becomes reality. As parents, we exert the strongest influence on how our children feel about themselves. Your behavior determines how a young person thinks and behaves. One other point to bear in mind: a young person's need for your acceptance is so strong, it may well remain a need throughout their whole life. In fact, there are cases where this need for acceptance is so strong that it's been known to remain a need even after the parent has died. Now, during the course of today, we will discuss acceptance as well as appreciation. Both are pivotal. Now, ongoing social conditioning refers to those who are constantly doing their level best to influence us, primarily through, in all its forms, the media. They're all vying to influence us with their views and beliefs, political or otherwise, or in the case of advertisers, their products or services. Therefore, working hard to being the gatekeeper to your mind is a very healthy approach to take, especially as a parent. Of course, I'd love to come back and talk to you about the other three, but today we're going to focus on the most tangible, most visible of these four elements. It's our behavioral DNA that determines how we act and react to people and the situations we face. So as we begin to delve a little deeper, let's remind ourselves that nature and nurture are fundamental to you and your children. Remember, we all came to life's party already hardwired this way.